Bonjour, good morning, Minogajap, Midwebe Kamaga Kwe Indijnakas, Name Andodem, Anishinabe Kwe Ndao, Abeding Mide, Shwanaga and Donjaba, Georgian Bay Biosphere, Minadogami, and Donji no Ki. So good morning. I've identified myself. As Delana said, my Anishinaabe Noswin. My spirit name is Midwewe Kamago, which translates to Sounding Earth. I am from the Sturgeon clan, so I've identified that. I've said that I'm from Shawanaga First Nation, that I am Ojibwe ancestry. That's where that's how I come to this place. I've talked about where I get my teachings from. And I've also identified that I work at Georgian Bay Biosphere, Minnetonka. I am the Mwanje Way manager, and so that talks about getting people together. And so I'm glad that to see so many people are together today. So miigwech to Delana for coordinating all of this, but also I'm really excited to be sitting with Waabkaniikwe for a fourth time and for sharing what she's going to share today as part of the 13 Moons. And so again, miigwech to everyone for being here. I look forward to sharing and also encouraging those that can participate with a session on Friday. Please do so. Bring a coffee, bring a tea, bring a treat or a snack. And we look forward to being able to sit with each other and have greater conversations about 13 Moons. Miigwech.
I noticed that Christine,
Hello.
hi.
Oh, man. I'm sorry, I'm late.
That's quite all right. Rural internet is a real thing. We've both done our introductions, so not to put you on the spot right away, but is it okay if we turn it over to you now?
Sure. Winnipojol Kanawea, Waabkaniikwe Dishnakas, Mikazed Odem, Wasaksing Donjaba, Anishinabe Kwe Ndao, Nijo Medeo. Yeah, lovely technology. Wasn't working. I could see you guys. I couldn't hear anything. And I wasn't sure if you could see me because I can't see me. So can you see me? Okay, this is weird. I'm just gonna flow with it. Miigwech, Gibajayig, miigwech for coming today, for spending this time and talking about the moons. So last month we talked about solstice and what the solstices mean. And so we're leading up into memorial feasts that we typically do around the first snowfall and when those spirits are starting to wake up. So that was the last session that we had in this session. We're talking about the moons. And I was talking to my mom about the moons. My mom is Nipa Gagegdokwe. One who speaks for many is her Nishinaabe Noswin is her name. And she's from the Waabkaniikwe clan. She's Martin clan. So I also acknowledge the Martins as part of who I am too, because that's who my mom is. And my dad is the Migaze, is Eagle clan. So let me back up to the translation of my introduction. Some people are repeats to the sessions that we've been doing with Georgian Bay Biosphere. And so my name is Waabkaniikwe, and literally translated, it means white bone woman. But what the story is with my name, the meaning of my name is actually the bone marrow of a bone. So that strength within my family. So I'm the strength of my family, and that's what it's referring to as the bone marrow. And that's what my name means. And I have a funny story that I'll share later on about my name. And so I'm from the Eagle clan. So I sit with the Eagle clan. I follow my father's clan. As a Nishinaabe, we follow our father's clan, and our Haudenosaunee relatives follow their mother's clan. I am from Wasauksing and identify as Anishinaabe because Anishinaabe is part of the Three Fires Confederacy, which is the Potawatomi, Ojibwe, and Odawa people, nations. So I say I'm Anishinaabe because I'm Ojibwe and have Potawatomi blood as well. And I am second degree Mede Wawin, which is the kind-hearted, which means kind-hearted people. And the Mede Wawin is a medicine society, and where my knowledge comes from is from the Three Fires Lodge, and has come from there since I started learning about who I am as Anishinaabe, and teachings that I've learned and ceremonies that I participate and help with. And also am learning to do and have been learning to do since I was young. And one of them is the full moon ceremony. And so it was my aunt, Joshko Gijigo Kweban, who started teaching us when we were young and encouraged young girls who were going to become young women to attend full moon ceremony. So the moons have a close relationship with women. As women, we have a close relationship with the moon. She's our grandmother. Mama Aki is our mother, is our original mother. And so Mother Earth's mother is the moon. So she's our grandmother, and she's one of the first, well, she's the second light that was created. She's also called Dibik Gizis or Naba Gizis. I call her Nokomis. When I see the moon, I acknowledge her as my grandmother. And as not having any grandmothers here, I'm thankful that I have that grandmother, but I do have an adopted grandmother too. A grandmother in my community who adopted me because I had no grandmother. So I acknowledge her as my grandmother too. And so I'm thankful for that relationship that I've had with my grandmothers and my great-grandmothers. I was fortunate enough to grow up a little bit with my great-grandmothers as well. So you'll hear different teachings for the moons. So you'll hear the moons named differently from what I might be talking about today. And also to premise that all of our teachings and our stories, they're all true. They're all true to you and how you carry them. So the teachings that I carry, the teachings that I choose to carry and walk with, they're true to me as in my understanding and how I walk through life with these teachings at my center that sit with my spirit and beside my heart. And so I appreciate the learning that I get to do as Anishinaabe, and that the place that I go to for my teachings, the Three Fires Lodge, the Medewan Lodge. I'm so thankful for that connection I have to spirit through that lodge. So the moons that you see, there's the Haudenosaunee, they also have names for their moons too. And so do their Mashkigawak relatives, the Cree relatives. They also have names for their moons. And what these moons do is they help guide us in life. They help us navigate what we should be doing, what we should be preparing for. And every 28 days, we acknowledge and we sit with our grandmother, the moon. And when she is sitting up there so beautiful and so bright, that's an opportunity that we get to visit with our grandmother. And she sees us all the time, and she's a part of the creation story as well. So Gizis, we also refer to Gizis as our Mishomis, as our grandfather. So they are the parents to Mother Earth. And so within our teachings, from what I understand, is we have balance. So we always have this, this balance of responsibilities. And so I acknowledge my Mishomis, my grandfather, because that's the balance that, and those are men's teachings as well, that we hear, but it's men who carry those teachings. Moon teachings, they're women's teachings. And so as women, we go and we learn what those teachings are, and those who identify as women too, I should say. we go and we learn those teachings. And as Anishinaabe, we're oral people, so we typically don't write anything down, although we do have knowledge that has been written down. And our beloved Grand Chief, Waabkaniikwe, he's written down the knowledge that was shared with him. And so we have a guide that we can look to when we need to be reminded of maybe certain teachings that touched us, or that we want to be reminded of even. And so we can refer to those books that we have, and anybody can get them. I think the Mishomis book is one that I refer to quite frequently, because I hear the creation story every time I go to ceremonies, and we haven't been in a while because of the pandemic, unfortunately. And so we hear that creation story there, and we see it displayed in front of us. And so we take that in. And we also hear other teachings while we're there too. We're sitting in ceremony, and next month we would be getting ready. Yeah, next month, January, we would be getting ready for big ceremonies. We would be getting ready to go and travel to sit with our relatives and to sit with those teachings and ceremonies again. So the month that we're coming out of is November. And that month is a harvesting month. So that's the month that we would, well, I was organized and then my computer threw me off. 2 seconds. November is the month that we would be harvesting and getting, in our case, in contemporary times, our freezers would be starting to fill up with meat. So a lot of the game that we hunt in this area are the Waabkaniikwe, the deer, and the moose. And so we begin to prepare ourselves for the winter. And some of the other smaller game that's ready to us, we can hunt that throughout the winter, but some of the bigger game is what we hunt in this time. And so we've done that harvest. And I'm so thankful for the teaching that I've been receiving over the last few years that I've been hunting. So you could hear that name of the November moon as harvest moon or hunting moon. But Waabkaniikwe refers to it as the frozen over moon. So Gashkidno Gizis. And Gizis is at the end of all of the moon names, because that's recognizing that it's a light that we have. And that's the light that we get from the moon. So in that time of harvesting, we're also reminded as communities that we would come together at that time and we would hunt. And oh, I just realized I'm not even looking at my camera. I'm talking to the screen. We would hunt, and we would hunt together, or sometimes individually, but generally we would all come together and we would hunt, and we would share in whatever it is we harvested. We would share that together, and we would share that with our community. And I was reading something recently, and actually I think it was in the Nishinaabe Almanac, which is what Waabkaniikwe has written as well. And he talks about the moons, the different moons, and what gift each moon has. And so I'm talking about the moon that we're just coming out of, which is the harvest moon, and the moon that we're in now, which is it's the little spirit moon, or Monadongizis. And so that's the little spirit moon, and that's bringing us getting us ready for the next moon, which is January, which is the great spirit moon, which is Gitche Monadongizis. So back to the November moon, and when we're getting ready to harvest, and we're harvesting this meat so that it'll carry us through the winter, because during this next season, the winter season, Bibon, we actually don't travel anywhere. In contemporary times, we can travel all over the place. We can travel across the world. although I wouldn't advise it right now. But we would be still, and we would be hearing. This is a time that we would be sitting with our communities in this this little spirit moon, Manadons Gizis, and well, in Bibon in this season actually, and we hear our teachings, we hear our clan stories. So our clans, we boast about our story, our clans, because we're so proud to be from that clan, and we tease other clans, but we do it with love. We do it from our heart and with love. So we tease each other's clans. So my mom, she's in a household with a bunch of Migaze. So we're always teasing her, and we're saying to her, be careful, Waabkaniikwe. You might become an appetizer. So she has 3 children who are Migaze, and 1 granddaughter who is Migaze as well. So we're teasing her, and she teases us, and she says, oh, I'm so small, I'm so cute in all my richness. But that's some people would say that's boasting, but that is who we are. That's our clans are a part of who we are. Our names are a part of who we are, and that's a part of our purpose in life. Our clan and our name help us understand and walk towards our purpose in life. And so although we do all this teasing and boasting of our clans, of who we are, in all seriousness, we're learning about who we are too. So as a Migaze, we know that we can fly high and we can see this bigger picture. As I'm understanding my clan, I can see this bigger picture. And then that other clan that I walk with, the Waabkaniikwe, I can put that picture into a doable picture. So instead of having this ginormous view, I can bring it down as well. And so I'm understanding that I am a social worker, and so I have lots of really big ideas. And so that other part to me, my Waabkaniikwe-ness, I can bring that picture down so that it's workable, it's achievable. And so I acknowledge both of those clans, and we hear that in this time. We hear about our clans, we hear about stories in our families, in our communities even. And this is a time that we would do that. We would hear from our elders and our storytellers. So those storytellers in your community, they're so gifted with telling you a story that you can picture that image as they're telling you. Or maybe they're talking about blueberries and they're talking about strawberries and that sweetness that you can taste when you bite into those. You can taste that just by somebody who is gifted as a storyteller, them telling you that you can do that, you can imagine that. And so during this time, this is when we hear, during Bibon, during winter, this is when we hear those stories. This is when we learn as well. So in those harvesting times, in the warmer months when we're harvesting, that's when we can also learn about different medicines that we've harvested that will take us through the winter. And so we sit and we learn about this. I might have talked about this before as well with our little ones. We pay attention to their interests, because those are gifts that they're carrying. Their interests, maybe they're interested in medicine, maybe they're interested in caretaking, maybe they're interested in harvesting and being a harvester or being a protector of our communities. And so we nurture that in our young ones. We recognize that and we nurture that. And so we put our young ones with those people who know and understand maybe what medicines are. And so during this time, they would sit with those medicine people and they would learn about the different medicines. We would nurture that in them. We would pay attention to what their likes are, what their dislikes are. We would listen to them. Our little people, they're not just children. They're not just babies. They come into this world with knowing. They come into this world with knowledge. They've just come from the spirit world. So they come carrying this knowledge. So we see them as this bundle of knowledge as well. as a bundle of joy. And so at this time, this is when we're sitting in our communities and we're sitting with our families, whether that's your immediate family, because as Anishinaabe, our families are ginormous. And I don't just mean like biologically, although back in the day, I think my grandmother's family had like 8 kids, but my grandparents also farmed like on their property. So, you know, they had lots of hands to help them do that. Today, we don't have families as big. So there's four kids in my family. My older sister, she's passed on, but we still acknowledge her. She's physically not here, but she's still a part of her family. And so at this time, we're sitting and we're learning from all of our aunties and our uncles, and whether that's like clan aunties and uncles or people that are close to our family, our sponsors, they're considered our aunties and our uncles. But you'll also hear people that acknowledge older folks who are older than them, acknowledge them as an auntie or an uncle, and that's out of respect that they do that. And you hear other nations do that as well. They might not be related to that individual, but they respect them to call them an auntie or an uncle. So at this time, this is what we're doing. And we're also at this time too, we're learning, as Bawewe Dunbun had shared, we're learning to be with ourselves. We're learning to also meditate because we're home. You know, we're not out on the land as much, traveling. We might be out on the land, yes, but not traveling as much. We're staying closer to home. And that's, well, for one thing, because it's cold, although it hasn't been like super cold in a long time, which is what I really miss, but that's part of what's happening today in our world. And it's unfortunate that these stories that we'll be carrying forward are those days where we had 10-foot snowbanks. And it's rare that we see those 10-foot snowbanks anymore. I'm a lover of all seasons. I mean, I live in this hemisphere, I think. You live in this hemisphere and you appreciate what creation has given to us. Part of the creation story, Anishinaabe man was last to be lowered. And I think about that, and I think how fortunate I am to have even been thought of by Creator. And that's part of our creation story, was that Creator created everything that we see here today on Mama Aki, but then wanted the experience to be experienced, to touch, to feel. And so sometimes you'll hear people say we're a spirit having a human experience, and that's because Creator wanted this to be experienced. So when we are called back to the spirit world, when we're called home, we sit with Creator again and we tell our story to Creator. We tell our story of our experience here in this physical world. So we come from the spirit world to this physical world to experience what's here. And we go back to the spirit world and sit with Creator and talk about our life here. And that's also another teaching too, and it's called the stages of life, or the Mekons, or the 4 hills. There's quite a few different names for this one particular teaching, where when we're called back to the spirit world, when our purpose has been fulfilled, we turn around and we see our whole entire life just as we've came into the spirit world. When we're coming in, and we see our whole entire life in front of us, and when we're born, we breathe this physical air, we forget that. So there's times where it feels like you've been there before, and that's people call that deja vu. Well, that's your spirit. Your spirit went ahead, and then you've caught up to your spirit. And so for Nishinaabe, the spiritual experience is being in this physical form and experiencing this life. So we turn around and we see our whole entire life again, and we look at everything that we did. And I really like that teaching. It's a really beautiful teaching, and it definitely cannot be told in 1 hour or via virtual. I think it's definitely a teaching to be experienced in person, because you can draw it out, and it's just a beautiful teaching to be a part of. So at this time when we're in Babone and we're preparing, as I said, we just did that in, I work for Shawanaga First Nation, and they've been doing a hunt camp, I think, for like 15 years. And I've participated in the last 6. And so each year I have such a profound appreciation and humbleness for those animals that decide to give up their life so that we can survive. Because, as I said, Nishinaabe was the last to be lowered. So everything can survive here without Nishinaabe. Nishinaabe cannot survive without everything else, part of creation. So in Nishinaabe, we acknowledge that, and we say, Ninduwe Maganaduk, all my relations, all my relatives. And that's what we're referring to, is everything in creation. So all the plant life, all the animal life, all the birds, all the fish, everything that we can possibly think of, that's our relation, that's our relative. And so during that harvest time, we should hear a teaching, pardon the should, but we don't hear the hunting teaching enough to remind our people about the intention when we're hunting, and how that animal gives its life up for you. And when you hear the teaching and you experience the teaching in person, it's pretty powerful. I've experienced it twice, 3 times, and 4 times actually. And I'm so thankful for those experiences that I've had, because each time I've gone out, I've learned something more about hunting and growing more in love with harvesting, and seeing the importance of being able to provide, even if it's bungi, a little bit of wios, a little bit of meat for my family. I'm thankful that I could do that, because that's medicine meat that we're eating, because that's the purest kind of meat I think that we could eat. There's nobody out there injecting them with hormones. We're eating what those animals are eating, the wisiak, the animals, we're eating what they're eating. So for, I think it was Joe Pitawanakwit who had shared this about mows, that they eat mows mish, which is striped maple. So they eat the leaves of this, this medicine, mows mish, and you can harvest it all year. And mows will eat this medicine because it helps them heal. And so when they're trucking through the bush, you know, like, that's a really good meal. I could see why my Yingan would want that meal. That would be a really good good dinner for a long time. And so mows, they eat mows mish because it's healing. So when we think about all of the plant life that the wisiak are eating, and that's what we're eating, I have such an appreciation, because, you know, there I am sitting as I'm harvesting and watching these animals, and they have to do this every day. They have to hunt for their food every day. I can hop in a car and go to the grocery store. Yes, that's easy enough. But the appreciation is for these animals that go and do that. And that's a teaching in itself. And I feel like that's preparing us when we're being patient. We learn lots of patience when we're hunting as well. And lots of humbleness, lots of humility when, you know, something's right in front of you and you miss, because it happens. And if you're a hunter, you understand that. So it teaches you lots of patience, but I also feel like it's preparing you for the winter when it's quieter, when you're sitting with your family, with your community, and you're coming into this resting stage of a season. And it's one season that we're encouraged to rest, and what we don't do enough. And well, as a social worker, I always have these ponders. And so that's been my ponder, is the thought of people. And I always talk to my mom about it, and she probably wonders about me sometimes. She's a social worker too. But I think we, as social workers, we have different interests. And one of mine is people, and how people think, and how people react. And so one of my ponders lately has been, why do we feel the need to travel? Why do we feel the need to try and be everywhere that we can? And so as I've been thinking about that, and then also thinking about this time of rest, and this is a time for us to rejuvenate. And I was mentioning the big ceremonies that we go to in January. We go 4 times a year. Well, we went 4 times a year. And just how rejuvenating that was for my spirit to do that, to go and have my spirit filled back up with teachings and with affirmation as well for the life that I have chosen to live. And that's the Medewan life, the Medewa life. I've chosen to live that. And that doesn't mean in any way that we're perfect because we hear teachings, because we sit in ceremony. We're humans, and we live life to experience mistakes, but to experience life in itself as well. And I'm acknowledging this because of comments that I've heard as a Medewa individual, in that sometimes it's almost like we can't make a mistake because we're Medewan, but that's not true. What our Grand Chief and our doorway chief, our Eastern doorway chief, what they're always encouraging is that we learn all the time, that we might hear a teaching once, and that's not it. We don't hear the teaching once because each time we hear a teaching, we're somewhere different in our life. We're experiencing something different, or something has changed. And so we hear these teachings over and over again. And I'm thankful for that. Onabinase is our Eastern Door chief. And he's from Shawanaga as well. And he's part of that very rich Waabkaniikwe clan. And he talks about that richness too. So he's their chief of the clan, the Waabkaniikwe, the Martin. But he came into my life when I needed affirmation of the direction I was going in my life. And that was continuing on my path of social work. And I don't actually call myself a social worker. I call myself a helper because I help people in their life, and whatever that might look like. I walk beside them. I definitely will not push someone to do something they don't want to do, and I will not pull them kicking and screaming. I'll walk beside you, however long that takes. And so anyways, he came into my life at a time where I was deciding to move forward in my postgrad. And he shared the creation story. And everything that he shared, and I went 4 times because it actually takes a long time to hear the creation story. So he told it 4 times, and I think those were like 6 or 7 hours that we sat and we listened each time. But the creation story can be told over 10 days. And that's probably like full days, sun up to sundown, that's when our ceremonies take place. There are some that take place at night for specific reasons, but within our big lodge, we're sun up to sundown is when our ceremonies take place. And so anyways, he was talking about Nishinaabe and Nenamowin, Nishinaabe thought. And so as I was sitting listening, he deepened the understanding of the word. So Nishinaabe and Nenamowin is Nishinaabe thought. Yes, that's the literal translation. But the deepening that he had was that the thought as Anishinaabe is you're walking and talking with your heart, with your spirit, and you're experiencing all of the five senses, even the sixth sense that we have, and that's our chichak that we don't always talk about. And so that's that intuition as well. And my mom and I always talk about this too, like, oh, geez, you know, something told us we should have gone that way, but we went this way. And that was our spirit. And so we should have went that way, because then sometimes we get lost or we run into something. And I refer to my mom because I hang out with my mom quite a bit. She's a pretty cool old gal, as she would say. But the conversations that we have are pretty cool as well. And so I'm thankful that I have those conversations. I have the same conversations with my dad, don't get me wrong. We have good conversations too. He just doesn't live here. My mom and I actually live in the same area together. And so anyways, what Waabkaniikwe was sharing at that time, and it was around this time, it was becoming winter, and he was talking about the creation story. And what I was hearing at that time as becoming a helper was to be led by the teachings, to be led by the seasons, and to have my heart open and to have my eyes open. And so when I was going through this program, the one question that we were asked is, do you listen and hear? And of course I thought, well, duh, yeah. But then when I actually sat with that and reflected on that, you can hear someone talking, you know, it's kind of like the Charlie Brown teacher. That's what you can hear. But are you listening? And so the greatest example I can share, if you have ever sat in a circle, whether it's a sacred circle, talking circle, full moon circle, and so we usually pass around a talking stick or a feather or a stone. I have a stone, it's called Wilson, baby Wilson. And so anyways, we think about what we're going to say as the stone or feather or talking stick is coming closer to us. So we're not actually listening to what other people are saying. And just as Delana was sharing, to be present, that's one thing that I think is important as people in general. You don't even have to be Nishinaabe to do this, but to listen and hear when someone is speaking to you, to take their words in, to give them that respect and to be present. And so when I was hearing Waabkaniikwe talk, that teaching of do you listen and hear came back. Then I understood further. There was that deepening of the Anishinaabe and Nenamowin, the Anishinaabe thought for me. And as a Migaze as well, I am a deep thinker, and not always in thought, but definitely my mind is always going. And sometimes it can be annoying when you're trying to go to sleep at night to turn off the thoughts, to turn off the thinking. But anyways, when Waabkaniikwe had shared that, Anishinaabe and Nenamowin, it became a part of who I am as a helper. It became a part of my helping bundle. And so I was thankful to hear that teaching during this time. because I was traveling from Kitchener to Midland to go and hear him. And so the last session we had was in December. And so then I decided that I would hunker down and I would sit with myself and I would learn to be okay with not having to be around many people. Not that I'm a hermit or any. For myself, I know that I felt like the need to visit, to always visit, and to be around people. And so the teaching that I had learned there was that it's okay to be with yourself and to reflect. One of the other questions that was presented to us is, what are you like to be around? And so, well, I had the winter to think about that, to think about what I was like to be around, and to think about the teachings that I was carrying. And then as I was going through each month and paying attention to each season, really, not so much the months, but the seasons that we move through. And there are months that we do particular ceremonies. And so January is our new year. That's we're celebrating a new year. And my mom and I were talking about where that extra moon is, and it can be in any one of the months. Is what we came to the conclusion of. Although we have seen some literature that, or it was a diagram that was put out, and it was on a turtle's back, and it was September that the extra moon was in. I have this cool app on my phone that shows me when it's going to be the full moons, and the next 2 new moons are in April, and the next 2 full moons aren't until 2023. So we were talking about that 13th moon and where that is, and well, what we've concluded is it really can be anywhere. But the moons that we currently have, for what I understand anyways, and what my aunties were starting to teach me, was January was the new spirit moon. So that's a celebration that we have in our family, and we come together and we eat because Nishinaabe like to feast. We like to eat. So we come together at that time, and we share gifts, but it's for myself, it's more of things that they could use. They might get sweetgrass medicines, or sometimes I do beadwork and I gift that to them too. And then the next moon that we have in Bibon is our Waabkaniikwe, our bear moon. Ban refers to it as the sucker moon, Name Bene Gizis. But for me growing up, I understood February to be Waabkaniikwe, and if you know about bears at that time, you know that that's when they're beginning to turn around. But also during that moon, we have a really beautiful ceremony, and it's a really good time to sit with yourself and to reflect, I guess you could say, vision even for yourself. And we do these awesome releasing bundles, and what they are things that we no longer want to carry. And so we make them during the bear moon. And the one of the gifts of the bear is to be that protector, and their other gift is their medicine knowledge. So as a protector, and they're walking around the outside of our community, they're getting to know all the medicines that are around our community. So they're the people that we would go to for medicine, for healing. And so during February, we make these bundles, and at full moon time, full moon ceremony is typically for women to come and visit. And so during February, men can come and put this bundle together. And this is one way that we can encourage people to take care of themselves and to take care of those things that they no longer want to carry. So we carry this bundle for a couple months, and then we release it when the waters are rushing. So there's no time frame, because we have to pay attention to when this is all going to happen. But we do know that we make these bundles during the bare moon. And we're still visiting at that time, and January and February is when the colder months are, and actually that's when you can also see the stars like super clear. I'm noticing, well, not in the last few days because it's been snowy, but you can see the stars like they're super crisp. Looks like HD out there. And so that's also when we can visit with our spirits too, with our loved ones, when we can see them so clear like that. And then we start preparing. So we go through the Bibone, and I focused on Bibone because that's where we're going into. Then we're getting ready for spring. So March is generally when we start seeing it warm up and things begin to melt. And then April is then when we start seeing signs of spring, and into May as well. And May is my favorite month, only because it's one of my names that I carried. Waabkaniikwe is the Jesus. Waabkaniikwe Jesus is flowers blooming, flowers blossoming, flowers blooming month. So that's one of my names that I carried. So yeah, I wanted to focus on Bibone because that's where we're at right now, and what we should be preparing for ourselves. Although there are those other 8 months that I didn't talk about, but Bibone is where we are at right now, and so that's in my understanding what we talk about right now as well. And there are like each, Anishinabe is one of our grandmothers in our lodge, and she talks about all the different moons as well, but she'll focus on the moon that we're in, that month that we're in. So we were just coming out of November and into December, and so I wanted to acknowledge all the harvesting that we just did, and all of the resting that we're coming into, and that we're going to do. Oh, we have 4 more minutes. So I guess I'll end there. And real cliffhanger, eh? Just leave the other 8 months. But if you come back on Friday, maybe we'll talk about some of the other months, depending on what people want to maybe reflect on even. You can share your reflections there. And yeah, any questions that you might have. One of the teachings Waabkaniikwe had shared, and that I like to carry, is as soon as you put pen to paper, you're not listening. So I had to put my pen down, because as he was getting ready to talk, that's what he shared. And so I really try hard to provide my undivided attention, although I might jot down a note here and there, and it's just to jog my memory. But miigwech for listening. Miigwech kibajayig via Zoom. Miigwech for coming today, and I hope you have a good day.